This episode of the HP Outdoors Waterfowl Podcast is proudly brought to you by Lifetime Decoys. Lifetime Decoys has set the new standard in decoy rigging equipment. Their signature, patent-pending designs use PVC-coated steel cable to prevent rust and corrosion, allow virtually zero line memory, while providing UV resistance and incredible strength and durability. Unlike monofilament, steel cable won't coil up and tangle with other lines because of excessive line memory. Their swivels and clips are made of high-quality stainless steel, and their aluminum ferrules are hydraulically pressed, providing unsurpassed strength. These materials combine to form the strongest, longest-lasting, and most tangle-proof decoy rigging equipment on the market today. They're also the only manufacturer who offers a warranty of 3 years as well as a money-back satisfaction guarantee. Check out Lifetime Decoys today at lifetimedecoys.com. You are listening to the HP Outdoors Waterfowl Podcast, episode 86. This week on the show, we're joined by Ryan Bassham, category marketer for Sitka Gear. Talk a little bit about hunting across the world, how to pack for trips, how to take guns through the airport, and new gear that's coming out from Sitka Gear this year. Welcome to the 86th episode of the HP Outdoors Waterfowl Podcast. We are your on-demand audio source for all things waterfowl and waterfowl hunting. Check us out at hpoutdoors.com. You can find us across all of the great podcast catchers out there, iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, all the good ones. We would like to thank the sponsors of this week's episode, Gunner Kennels, engineered for your dog, designed for travel, and built for your peace of mind. The G1 Kennel has set a new industry standard and put Gunner Kennels in a category all its own. Gunner Kennels was started to protect your pet, and it continues to be at the center of everything that they do. Gunner Kennels is dedicated to building the best and safest pet travel crate on the market. Man's best friend deserves man's best kennel. Check out their G1 series of kennels and accessories at www.gunnerkennels.com. We'd also like to thank Hunt Hickory Creek. Hunt Hickory Creek is Kansas's premier deer, turkey, and waterfowl hunter, now offering waterfowl hunts in southeast Kansas and at their new lodge in central Kansas. If you want to book the hunt of a lifetime, visit their website at www.hunthickorycreek.com or follow them on Facebook and Instagram to see what they have to offer for your Kansas trip of a lifetime. We'd also like to thank Camp Chef, Black Rifle Coffee Company, Big Al Silhouette Decoys, proudly made in the USA, 737 duck calls, original design, American craftsmanship, precision tune, superior sound, and unparalleled service, Southern Oak Kennels, and Cornerstone Gun Dog Academy. Thank you to the sponsors of the show. You can also check us out across all the social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You can join our Facebook listeners group, get in there and engage with a bunch of listeners of the show, engage with myself and my co-host, Dan Harushka. Dan, what's up, man?
Not too much. Excited about the conversation tonight. I would give you a weather update, but the weather stinks. And excited for convo tonight with Ryan. Yeah,
I think this is a good one. Ryan travels all over the place. He's on the road all the time, so we're fortunately able to steal a little bit of his time here this evening. And excited to welcome Ryan Bassham, category marketer of Sitka Gear, to the show. Ryan, how you doing, man?
Good, man. Glad to be on. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's our pleasure. We're glad to have you. I know Dan got a chance to talk with you a little bit briefly when you were in Australia, talking about the hunts and, stuff, and all that good stuff. But, we wanted to get you on individually because we think that not only your story and your background, but the things that you're involved with right now, as far as the outdoor industry and also the waterfowl, niche that we focus on. We just think that you've got a really cool story and a lot of things that guys would be interested in. And, people hear Sitka Gear and they know all about that stuff. And, Sitka has made a really, really strong name for themselves in the industry and on marketing and just sort of, promoting the experience and the lifestyle that goes along with all of that. And, obviously Dan and I always speak very highly of Sitka Gear, and we kind of look at that as like the pinnacle, but we know you don't get there with, out paying dues and sort of, doing the things that it takes to sort of prove yourself and stand out in a crowded marketplace, frankly. So if you wouldn't mind, talk to us a little bit about how you kind of got started, because I think one of the interesting things about you is you've been able to turn, what most of us consider a passion into, something that you get to do for a living. So you work with Sitka Gear, you've got, Trophy Expeditions that does sort of hunt planning and hunt consulting work. So talk to us a little bit about how you've just been able to kind of, for most guys, what would consider just live the dream and be able to do every day, something that you're passionate about.
Yeah, no, man, I really appreciate that. I've been fortunate from a young age. My dad's been one of my greatest role models, and he's demonstrated what hard work is and where that can take you. And with his encouragement of, people say it all the time, and it may sound a little cliche, but he's always said, "Hey, just figure out what you want to do in life, and just do what you love, and you will be guided to where you need to be." And so, that was a pretty big factor. And I know it sounds a little easy, but that's kind of what I just set out and did. And I've been fortunate enough to have a wife that's loving and supporting of that, and patient with the amount of travel that comes with this type of career at times. But, I look back and it's interesting as a kid. When I was like 13, 14, I remember going with my dad to a lot of these different hunting expos and shows. I'd go around and talk to all the different guys and outfitters, collect the brochures, go home, study and research. And it was a pipe dream that I might get to go to one of these places one day, maybe get to hunt outside the state of Texas. That just seemed so surreal to me. And so, it was just a passion I couldn't ignore. And I just set out to start trying to do it. Was fortunate to have other people around me like Randy Russell, who's been a great mentor as well. And we've been business partners of sorts over the years and have become close friends, and been able to kind of pursue this dream. I think I'd be doing a disservice to say, I'm a religious person, and I'm definitely far from perfect, but I believe, I've lived my way in such a life where God's blessed me and have been able to pursue this dream. So definitely got to give credit where it's due with everybody. But it's been a fun ride, to the least.
Yeah, one of the first things you said too, you have a supportive wife, and that's one of my first questions was, how do you balance? And I know that your wife is part of your business, and I believe she actually gets out and hunts with you too, right?
She does, yeah. So we're actually high school sweethearts, and I started taking my wife out hunting with me when we were in high school, and so she gets it. She has the same passion. Being a passion of being mom is overrides hunting for her right now, which is totally understandable. But yeah, she understands the mindset of a hunter and what that drive is and why we're doing what we're doing. No matter what level it is. I mean, whether you're a weekend warrior or you're just completely obsessed with it, she understands that mindset. At the end of the day, it helps that, we've been able to, that's what pays the bills for us. So it's easier for her to support it, but I think that's more easy that she's a hunter too, gets that.
So there's a lot of, you're in our Facebook listeners group, and it just seems like an explosion lately of people getting engaged or getting married. What would be a tip to keep those wives happy, or the men happy? Because there's some girls in there that are slayers too. So what, when you're home, how do you focus on being at home and, maybe putting a cell phone down, or, making sure that family time is family time?
Totally. No, I feel like I'm about to give some marriage counseling. Really counseling, but it's all about balance. You can get too consumed with things in life, and it all starts with communication. My kids are only 8 and 5, but I told my daughter, she's 8. I said, Zoe, if you ever see Dad, not paying enough attention, and you can reel me in. I want you to call me out, which you shouldn't have to do, but I'm just being real. That's the reality of it, because it's easy, balancing, full-time jobs and then part-time business and trying to maintain all the moving pieces to get sucked into that. So what I try to do is, from 5 to 9 every evening, I unplug the best that I can. And once the kids get back down to bed, I plug back in and keep on trucking and make it a point and schedule time, just like you schedule a meeting or any other aspect of your life. I schedule family time to make sure that that's there and that they're getting the attention they need. And, it's all about calendar. Like I've got hunts planned 3 years from now that I'm going to do. And it's taking into account all the different things that are going on in my family's life. First, I look at a calendar and I say, okay, these are the important dates every year, no matter what. And these are the dates that school is going to be out. So I know when the kids are going to be out of school and accessible just for me to spend time with them. And I plan my hunting trip and my business trip around that, the best that I can. And that ensures that I don't miss some of those critical moments being a dad and supporting them and being around. And same with my wife, she keeps me in check. And I think it comes to just being open to that, which I definitely am. So it's just being on the same page and communication, like I said. But being able to calendar that way is a lifesaver. And so as a family, we look at the calendar together and say, hey, what do we want to do? And what's going on? And we plan together as a family versus, it's really easy to take that individualistic approach and just become self-absorbed and just doing it on your own. Instead, we stay together and make the decisions as a family.
It's funny that you mentioned calendars because I travel quite a bit for work, and I tell my wife, the dates that I'm traveling, but you have access to my, my Google Calendar, and I'm like, literally, when I'm in town, you put something on there, and I'll be there, whether it's a chorus concert or a Taekwondo practice or whatever it is. You put it on there and I'll be there. I'm like Ron Burgundy with the teleprompter. Like she could tell me to show up at like the grocery store at 7 a.m. to do grocery shopping, and I'll show up there. Because I'm just like you. When I'm here, I really try to be present and focused. And I think that's definitely something that's really important. And I got to take a side note here really quickly, because as you were chatting there, I was just kind of browsing your Instagram page. For someone who doesn't have the 70 some thousand followers that you have, what's it like when you get like 2,000 likes on a photo? Is your phone just constantly blowing up, or you just turn all that off completely?
You turn all that off and ignore it. That's the best thing to do. You turn all that off and ignore it, and you do the best you can. I mean, beyond that, I think the most important part is I try not to take a lot of it for granted. I get hit up all the time from a lot of really like high school kids and college kids, like, hey, how do I pursue a career in the industry? And it takes a lot of time, and this is what I spend most of my evening doing. I refuse to have somebody ask me a question if you not respond. That's on me. And so, I do my best to try and get back to them, at least to give them some sort of thoughtful response to the question. But I don't know. That is it's an interesting thing. It's been fun, and not really what I thought would happen with it or the intent behind it, but a lot of good come of it. So. Yeah,
it's interesting too, because I look at what you're saying as far as your dad being such an influential person in your life, and and all of these things that have led you down the path that you've led. And I think all of us are probably very similar, whether it's your dad or your grandpa or your uncle or whoever. You had somebody in your life, that played a big role. Today, I feel like you see a lot more of that role, sort of like that mentorship role, and sort of the, whoever's setting the example for people, especially younger people, they're getting that fed from their social media, exposure. So instead of like spending the time with their dad in the blind, and maybe they are spending the time, but while they're in the blind, half of them got the phone out and they're looking at Instagram feeds and stuff of other people and having their experiences. So I'm curious as to someone who gets a lot more of that kind of like questions and floods, from your following, how do you feel like social media has impacted, like the next generation of hunters and just some of the interactions that you have? Are you seeing it be a positive thing, or are you seeing it as like, guys think that, because they can turn on a show on YouTube and see them just, piling up, hundreds of snows or whatever the situation is, that they're sort of getting desensitized to the feel of like, hey, if you're sitting in the blind with your dad and you kill 2 ducks, like that's a great day. Right.
Absolutely.
Do you feel like a little bit of that's getting lost?
Yeah, no, I think it is. social media has been a double-edged sword, and quite frankly, I mean, most businesses across all industries are just kind of figuring it out as they go and getting a feel for it and how that resonates with their target audience and what that means, and, all the different ways in which to create messages to share with that audience. And I think that initially, and maybe I'm being optimistic, but I'm hoping as an industry collectively we can pull together and kind of get things back headed in the right direction. But yeah, I mean, this whole, I want to be famous on Instagram or social media or whatever, it's kind of created some perception for the hunting industry that I would consider to be a negative. But the hope is that some of the brands out there can collectively come together and showcase what's more important. And, it's not how big the deer was that you shot or how many ducks you shot that day or hey, look how good a shape I'm in and all the things I can go do outside. Like, at the end of the day, that is not what this is about. And, I can say from a brand perspective, specific here, personal life, what I try to emulate is it's about enjoying. It's different for everybody. Figure out what you enjoy about it. Go out there and enjoy it. It's for you, not because of what you perceive people, view it as. So, it's my best hunting. Like I've been fortunate traveling all around the world. My best hunting experience was my wife shot her first deer, and this fall, Zoe's going to go out. We're going to go back home to Texas and hopefully get her on her first deer, and I'm sure that'll be the pinnacle of my hunting career. I have more fun getting to see people enjoy the outdoors for the first time than get to go and do some of the crazy stuff I get to do. I mean, I enjoy that. It's fun. I love it. I love the adventure, but there's more to it than that. And there's a deeper emotion to it.
Yep.
That's why we do it.
Yeah, and I'd like to transition a little bit here. I want to talk, we want to kind of focus on traveling. You're a traveling man, and maybe talk about a couple destinations that might be easy for some of our followers to obtain going there. I remember seeing some photographs from, I believe it was McCormick last year on a trip you went on, that were absolutely beautiful. I think they were right up there with your Australia hunt this year. And I know that we're also talking about, how many species people have harvested in America here, and then you came out with it seemed like an amazing number. So, kind of what's your species list and, your numbers there and kind of what's your end goal?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So lots of stuff to cover there. The beauty of it is most of the stuff, I know I put myself back in that situation when I first started thinking about even just hunting outside the state of Texas. It's really a lot easier than people think. And I get it. The first thing people are going to say is, oh, well, financially, how can it's doable. I promise. Like, I don't make that much money, and I definitely didn't make that much money while I was in college because I didn't really make any, but I figured out ways to plan accordingly and save up and get to go on that trip of a lifetime. It's absolutely obtainable, and that's what we try to help with our clients at Trophy Expeditions. And then when I was working for Ramsey Get Ducks, same thing. It's just all about planning. But with that said, some of the more obtainable ones that are super simple, in my opinion, fantastic experience, something that you're not going to have here in the U.S., specifically waterfowl would be, hunting the Pacific side of Mexico. There's some great hunting opportunities down in Mazatlan and in Obregon. You can shoot a variety of species that typically aren't full plumage here, and the limits are a little bit more generous as well. It's not hard to get, firearms in and out of that country through certain ports. But that's where we come in as hunting consultants to give guidance and direction on that, as well as working with travel agents who have had that experience of getting hunters in and out of the country without any issues. So it's just a matter of getting out there and planning accordingly and doing it. Another one that's kind of fun is, it's not necessarily international, but Alaska's an amazing experience as well. Doesn't have to be St. Paul for King Iders. There's a lot of stuff there around the Cold Bay area and Kodiak that provides something unique and different. And of course, you've got your classics. If you haven't hunted Arkansas green timber, I mean, it's always at the top of the list. It's one of those hunts that I do every year, no matter what. So there's a lot of opportunity out there. It's a matter of doing your homework, talking to people that are knowledgeable, that have done it, and they can kind of coach you through the process. And what people come to find out is like, hey, this isn't that hard at all. And before they know it, they're booking the next one. So a lot of it too, when you get into the travel side, is a lot of guys are always asking me, well, what do I take? And, what kind of gear? And you really don't have to take that much. Most people overpack. So that we could spend a whole other segment on how to pack and what it's like to travel for trips like that. But it's really it's really not that hard. The other question you asked, regarding species, there's a lot of guys out there that have been fortunate enough to take way more species than I have, and I don't have as many years as they do, so I'm chasing them is what I'm doing. But there's a lot of guys in their 20s that have done pretty impressive things too. Matt Goodrich is one of those guys. If I'm not mistaken, he's coming in on having his North American Slam done. But when I was with Ramsey, an interesting fact, when I was with Ramsey in Australia a couple of weeks ago, he actually shot I think it was his 104th or 105th species. I may be misquoting, but he's over 100 species of waterfowl now, which is pretty amazing. So my personal count, it's in the 70s at this point. My goal is to get up over 100, and it's not really a numbers thing. It's I don't view it that way anymore. If you can get to over 100 species, what that means is that you've been to some amazing places, met some amazing people, and the memories you have are worth so much more than, oh, hey, look, I've got over 100 species of waterfowl, because I've gotten to the point where who cares? But I know that if I can achieve that, the experiences that I gained from that adventure is just going to be awesome. And ultimately, that's what I'm chasing, whether it be waterfowl or big game. So that's kind of my perception on all that stuff. But and I can't remember what was the other question you had.
I think that about summed it up. But that brought me to another question. And a lot of these, I don't know how many countries don't allow you to bring species back in, but do you have a few mounts in your house, or are you more the photography, have pictures up on your wall?
Yeah, I've got more mounts than Marissa wants me to have in the house right now. I set out a while ago to try and have every North American species mounted, and I'm pretty close to done. I lost some in a freezer, so I have to go back and recollect. And then I've got a bunch of really cool stuff internationally as well. So we'll just say that I have a lot of bird mounts, and I've got a lot of big game mounts too, and we're trying to figure out what to do with everything at this point. So, I think you bring up an interesting thing, the whole taxidermy thing. Some people are into it, some people aren't. Some people are like, I don't want to invest the money. And I think it's just kind of a personal thing, I think whether that be saving the photography for the trip or actually having a special day, just being a taxidermist, at the end of the day, do whatever you want, whatever's going to preserve that memory the best for you is what you do. And, we should pass judgment on each other on what others do. We should celebrate it.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And, it's funny because, just jumping back to the numbers thing really quickly, one of the big things that's hitting us right now is the discussion about lowering the mallard limit here in the Atlantic Flyway. And a lot of people are really, hung up about that. And, recently we had the sea duck season, length decreased and things like that. And, I just look at all of that and I'm kind of like you. I have a long-term goal of having, one of all of the North American species at least mounted in my house. But at the same time, I'm just like, I don't get too hung up on the numbers, because here in the Atlantic Flyway, I mean, we hunt primarily geese, that's geese and diver ducks. So I'm like, if they said I couldn't shoot, 6 buffleheads this year, I'd probably be bent out of shape a little bit, because we kill a pile of them. But, the point of the matter is, for me, although I have my favorites and I have my, dream hunts and these things that I'd like to do, it all comes back to that. If I go out there and I shoot, 2 buffleheads and a ruddy duck, I'm probably having a blast, or the chance that I get to shoot a canvasback is like a Super Bowl, for guys like us. So I try to keep all of that in perspective. And it seems like, sometimes us as hunters, we want to lose sight of some of that perspective, in the sense that, what are we really out there to do? And, are we there to just make piles and put pictures on Instagram, or are we there to like live experiences and, and enjoy that moment? So, if they could literally say, I can't shoot mallards here for the next 5 years. And as long as I'm able to get my son out and introduce him to the sport, like, I don't care what we're shooting. Exactly. So, it's interesting that some of the people get so wrapped up about that.
Definitely. I mean, it's about the next generation. I want my kids, their kids. I mean, I hope one day that when I'm a grandpa, I'm able to physically still be able to get out there and do some of this stuff and see that and be able to pass down that heritage and this tradition. And I think it's up to us. We've got to come together and quit. It's become so much more easy to pass judgment on social media and think it's funny, but really it is a detriment. I mean, somebody else that has a great more deal of influence and is not connected to Sitka gear, a friend of mine, and we talked about it, and he's gotten online and done some pretty awesome rants about it. But we've got to quit passing judgment on each other and putting each other down and making people feel like they're inadequate. It's got to be more inviting. The reality is as time goes on, our society is becoming less and less engaged with being in the outdoors in general. And that means a decline in hunting. And, if you start breaking down the math on all this, okay, let's say, I can't remember, the entire outdoor industry, I'm talking about fish and hunting, as well as other outdoor activities. Let's say it's worth $50 billion. That sounds like a ton of money. But in reality, it's not, as you look at it compared to what the rest of this country is doing. And good grief, the government's putting millions and millions and billions of dollars into different things. If the hunting industry disappeared overnight, nobody would miss it. And so my point is we've got to come together and stand by each other and support it and make it inviting for other people to come in and experience and enjoy it the same way we do. Because there could come a day in our lifetime where it's not as accessible as it once was. And we've seen that happen in other countries around the world, where there was a hunting tradition and heritage, and it's going away. And we don't want to see that happen here.
Yeah, I think that's a really scary thought because, even look at the grizzly hunting in BC that's gone now and realizing, there's, 5% of the population that are hunters, 5% that are really crazy anti-hunters, and then you have the rest of the people in the middle that are voting. And when you see the hunters fighting, that's, maybe they're a little crazier than the whole anti-hunting crowd. You never know. So
I hunted in BC last year with my dad for moose, and I had a group guy. And it's interesting to hear those guys talk about, where those votes came from against, having grizzly bear season was all from your biggest city, so Vancouver. And so you can look at it the same way, as hunters, we can support each other, but even more so taking the next step forward is how do we get into some of the larger metropolitan areas here in the country and make it something that's of more interest to people who maybe are on the fence about hunting. Maybe they'll like it, maybe they won't. How do we make it an intriguing part of their lives? And that's what, a lot of those guys in DC said. They said, pretty much everybody in DC hunts except for where the majority of the population or where the majority of the vote counts is right there in Vancouver, and they pull all the weight. And so it's something to think about.
Yeah, and that's, we just what you and Josh were talking about, talking about the next generation, getting them involved and stuff. And I think, we had John Devney on from Delta Waterfowl, and he was talking about, the people with the man buns. He kept mentioning that, but, getting people out our age that are not involved in it and swaying some of that 90% that's in the middle and, showing them where the lean meat and the good protein comes from. Cause a lot of people are really getting focused in on, the exercising and the good food versus, the farming and whatnot. So it's a big, interesting conversation and, a lot of working parts, but
we're seeing an interesting shift occur. And the question is, well, what opportunities are we going to identify and address as an individual? It doesn't even have to be a huge group.
Yeah. And that's a couple goals of mine. I already have a couple guys that are semi into hunting, but really never got into it that I plan on taking out this year just to get out and experience that, just that time in the blind, even if we don't shoot anything, getting up and watching the sun come up and, seeing the birds fly. It is what it is. We're all in love with it, and that's why we're talking here tonight. But I'll just be the man of transition tonight. And, you were talking about a little bit about packing and going on trips. And I'll be totally honest. All the waterfowl hunts that I've been on, I have driven to until this past January when I flew up to Maine. And I would be lying if I said that I was not really nervous to take a shotgun into an airport. And it's even our local airport. It's an international airport, but it's a very small airport. And just going through that whole thing. So maybe, talk about how easy it was, because I had a very, very good experience going to Maine and coming back from Maine. I think some of the things a lot of people argue about are the small things. What case should I get? Do my locks have to be TSA approved? Can I put my ammo with my gun? Maybe just walk us through that. And then how do you pack? How do you make sure that you have everything that you need?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So with firearms, and we'll keep it to within the U.S., because once you start going out of the U.S., it becomes country specific. And so that's a whole different can of worms. Within the U.S., it really is incredibly simple. I've got a couple different ways I do it, depending on the type of hunt I'm going on. But like you said, I would get a good case. SKD, Plano, they all make great cases. That's just what I personally use in the past. There's other ones beyond that. But something that you can get a TSA approved to lock on is definitely, what you have to do. Now, what's interesting is some airlines, and depending on the port or the airport that you're traveling in and out of, what you'll find is it differs a little bit, which is kind of scary. And that's just, I don't know where the disconnect is within, the TSA, but I run into it all the time where they're like, oh, well, you have 4 places on your case where you can put a lock. You have to have a lock on all 4 places where a lock can be inserted. So I've gotten a habit now. I've just got like 8 TSA in my bag at all times because I don't know what I'm going to run into. Usually I just throw a couple on there and that's all you need. But when you get up to the baggage check, what they're going to ask you to do is you're going to fill out a form. Basically, they're going to check to make sure the gun's unloaded. They look inside. You put the locks back on. Goes through a screening process, and you're off on your way. Some airports you pick it right up there at the baggage claim. Other airports there's a designated area for special baggage where you have to go and pick it up and show them proof of ID. It just kind of differs depending on the airport. The other thing is that your ammo cannot be in the gun case with the gun. It has to be separate. And so there's been a couple ways I've done this. Sometimes I'll take a big gun case. I know I'm taking more than one gun. There's a reason that I have to do that sometimes based on content trips. But if I know I'm just taking one gun, I shoot Benelli and Beretta. I'll break it down and put it in the case that it comes from the manufacturer because a lot of times there is a TSA lock on that. And that allows me to put it inside my suitcase. So instead of checking 2 bags, your luggage bag and then your gun case, I'm just checking 1 bag and my gun is locked inside my bag, which saves money. And especially if you get the weight right, it's not a big deal. But then I just put my ammo inside the bag too, and that's never an issue. So just a couple of tips on what works well for me anyway. What helps make sure you keep the weight down is before every trip, I literally do not pack till the night before. And a lot of that's because I'm bad about procrastinating on that sort of a thing. But the other reason is I'll check the weather. And even if it's a 4-day hunt, if it's a 3-week hunt, I look at the weather forecast and just plan accordingly. And with Sitka gear, we're known for how we build our system. And so I just build the system based on the weather that I'm anticipating. And then I might have one go-to item that I always have, which is typically some sort of outerwear or Gore-Tex layer, because at the end of the day, whether you're going up to Alaska or BC to hunt big game, or going down to Arkansas to hunt ducks, you don't want to be wet. And so I always have an outerwear to keep in the system as well. But that's kind of my tactic and approach in packing. Most airlines, you can't, your bag can't weigh over 40 pounds. And so you got to make sure you got that dialed in before you go. Otherwise, you're paying $100 bag charge, which you don't want to do. And that differs airline to airline.
Yeah, I think I'm guilty of overpacking for hunts, and being the funny thing is, being a college baseball player, I learned to live out of like a duffel bag for an extended period of time. So
Right.
Personal clothes, I don't care. I wear the same pair of shorts or pair of jeans, whatever. Clean underwear and stuff, and I'm good to go. When I hunt, it's like I prepare for 80-degree weather and like negative 20-degree weather, and I take everything that I own just because I don't want to be caught off guard. But it's so funny because it's like, literally it's as simple as, check the weather and plan accordingly. But for some reason I'm like, well, I might need this particular thing. So, I bring it, it stays in the suitcase, and I ultimately don't wear it. But, I will say this kind of leads into something that I wanted to ask you. And, like in our listeners group and I guess across social media in general, Sitka gear can be a divisive topic because, you've got people that, seem to be, there's some people that seem to be firmly on one side of the fence or the other. And the ones, that are on one side tend to always interject themselves in discussions about Sitka gear, and it turns into arguments and things like that. And I mean, obviously you guys see this, you know what I'm talking about. Not so much into why you think that happens, but like, I'm curious to know, like, how many times have you got people where they literally come back and say, they take the opportunity to try the Sitka gear and come back and say like, oh, I would prefer to be more bulky, or I would prefer to wear like cotton or whatever it is. I mean, how oftentimes, because that's sort of always our thing. It's like, we get guys that are so against it. And so, for whatever reason it is. And then when they try it, it's like they convert and they understand, all of the things that we've been saying for a while. But like, how do you guys combat that? Because, you're at shows, you're out there on the floor, you're talking to the hunters, you're face to face, you don't have people behind keyboards, it's real discussion. And what about a guy that says like, hey, it's hard for me to swallow a $400 jacket when I've been wearing whatever for so long and I think it's okay. Like how does that discussion go? Because I can tell you on social media, it doesn't usually go real well.
Right. No, absolutely. Well, I mean, and usually the way I approach conversations like that, and I can say that they have not happened very much. It obviously depends on, the context of the person's interaction with the product, whether they've actually tried it or not. A lot of it's just, them basing assumptions on their opinion, and which doesn't really work. But, the way I handle it is, Sitka gear is a product that has fabric ingredients that are far superior than what else is available out on the market. I mean, W.L. Gore produces fabric technologies that are used by Arc'teryx, the same stuff that we use, and that stuff basically keeps you alive up top of Mount Everest. It's what I like to call bomb-proof. Does it mean that's for everybody, and particularly where they hunt? No, absolutely not. Do I think it's a product that would benefit anybody that hunts it based on their pursuit? It absolutely could. And so I like to go through a series of questions based on how that conversation is going, and I'm truly understanding, okay, well, how do you hunt? And this would be my recommendation for products specific to the region you hunt in, the type that you do. We've got a solution specific to that situation. And if it becomes, a price point thing, hey, I get it. I totally get it. I think there's two trains of thought. It's like, hey, why spend $400 on a jacket when your jacket works fine and I spent, half as much on it? Well, at the end of the day, Sitka products have been tested to last longer. And if something does go wrong, and sometimes it does, our customer service team will back it up. We'll address the issue. And I think we've actually been able to garner a pretty healthy reputation of doing just that. We stand behind our gear. If it's within the manufacturing warranty, we're going to replace it. We're going to take care of it. And so that's really where it comes at. If you want to spend $600 over the next 5 or 10 years on coats, or spend, $400 one time, and that coat lasts a lot longer. I think that's really kind of where that discussion comes into play. But again, there's so many variables to this. I mean, I'm sure guys are listening, they're like, okay, well, yeah, but I do this. And that's, I hunt in this environment, this type of condition, and I, always, blow out my waders with this jacket, and I've never found a product that will stand up to those conditions. And, I challenge him, well, try it, put it to the test. Tell us what didn't work well for it, and we'll go back into the product development lab and we'll find a solution for you. That's what we want. I mean, if we have something that doesn't meet someone's expectations, man, tell me, because I want to, because now I've received a challenge on how I can make something better.
Yeah, and I think we talk about innovation all the time, and you're not going to hear any arguments from us. We're totally on board and use it and approve it and preach it. So
I appreciate that.
That's the I think people know that about us. But anyway, I guess we can transfer into. I guess I'm transferring again here. We started talking about it. Let's talk a little bit about what Sitka Gear has up their sleeve a little bit. And I know that everyone's talking about the waders. It's the biggest thing, but I want to start with something different. And I have.
Sure, well, bring it.
I have many nicknames. Josh calls me Minivan Dan because my wife has a minivan. I'm the weatherman lately. But I've also been called Dan Merino because I've been advocating merino since I tried it, and it's been a while now, but I think that is just something that really, really helped me, I guess, and Josh can attest to this because another nickname I had was Sweaty Appendages because my hands and my batting gloves always sweated when we played baseball, and he was grossed out by it. So I'm a sweaty guy, just, naturally a sweaty guy. I'm hot in general. The merino has changed my time out in the field, and it's wicking. It's amazing. And when we had Beer on here, 3 years ago, he was really tuned in. He said, we're confident in the one layer, but I've heard scuttlebutt that there might be a few different options coming out. So what do you got for us there?
Yeah. So what's going to be new for 2018 is there's a lightweight merino base layer that we're going to be coming out with. A little bit different thread that we're using, a little bit different blend. And so it's lighter in weight, still accomplishes everything you would want out of a merino base layer. I mean, said it pretty well. I mean, the whole purpose of that layer is to pull moisture away from the body and move it out through to the surface, through the other fabrics that might lay over the top of that, but then to dry quickly, because the last thing you want is you're out setting decoys and loading decoys in and out, keep your gear set up, and you sit down and get still. Like you've perspired because of all that. I don't care how cold it is. I get sweaty and 20 here in Montana, set stuff up. And then you get still, and you start to get cold if you can't dry out quickly enough. And that's what merino does. It's that first fabric that has contact with your skin that needs to dry out quickly. And so our lightweight merino for this year, I believe to be a little bit more versatile. If you run hot, which like I do, I'm a bigger guy, what that means is that you get hot more quickly and don't get cold like other people do. You don't get cold abs quickly as other people do. It's a great option for you. Allows you to be active, maintain warmth when you're not perspiring. A lot of big game hunters use this. I know when I'm out elk hunting here in Montana, up in the mountains, and you're huffing, you're puffing, and it's the same concept. You want something that's lightweight, something that's going to breathe easily and dry out quick.
Yeah, Dan swears by merino, and Dan, we had Jim on the show in December of 2014. So you've been ringing that bell for several years now, and I have to say I'm a convert. I'm in that boat rowing with you. But Ryan, yeah, the big buzz around the interwebs and everything this year has been the waders, and you can't help but sit back and laugh when, for the last several years on all of the forums and stuff on Facebook, it was like, when's Sitka going to come out with waders? And everyone was saying, they're not doing waders. They're not doing waders. And it was like the big elephant in the room, because we all kind of thought they're definitely going to do waders. Like there's just, it seems like that's something that's a natural fit, especially when the dedicated waterfowl line came out. So we're excited to hear a little bit about that. And honestly, I'd like to hear a little bit about your take about the evolution of waders in general, because for years it was, a duck hunter had to wear 5 millimeter neoprene waders with, all of this distillate in the boots and all of these things. And this was what what you were told you had to wear. And now, the breathable wader has taken the market by storm. How did we get here? Are we being, was this movement led by, the advancement in fly fishing waders and how that could be adapted to this sport, or did it happen some other way? And kind of what was Sitka's approach to solving this problem, or, sort of making a better mousetrap, for lack of a, better expression?
Yeah, totally. I mean, so obviously lightweight, breathable waders, I think it's been more commonplace for the fishing industry in general for a longer period of time. So that's inevitably influenced the hunting part of the industry. I mean, the benefits are pretty tough to argue. I mean, at the end of the day, take everything out of the equation. And at the end of the day, what we all want in life as a society is we want what's easy, what's comfortable. As a hunter, I want to wear whatever keeps me out in the field longer and more comfortably. And even better, most of us are hunting for the entire season, and the weather changes are going to change or to constantly change throughout that season. And I need something that's versatile. I don't want to have a 5 millimeter neoprene and a 3 millimeter neoprene and this and that. I don't want to deal with all that. I want one wader that will work. And so we kind of looked at, basically we took insights and feedback from a lot of guys and outfitters and notable people in the waterfowl industry that hunt 60 plus days a year, depending on where they're at, and started to design what we believe to be one of the best wader solutions for the waterfowl hunter specifically. And so there's a couple of key features on the wader. I think the thing that really changes the industry and the way we see waders as a waterfowl hunter is that up to this point within the waterfowl space, there's been no brand that's been able to design and facilitate a serviceable wader. And a lot of people will hear the brand discuss that. That'll be a heavy part of our communication, is that it's serviceable. Well, what that means is that it can be repaired. This is not a disposable wader. That doesn't mean, hey, I'm going to wear it for a couple of years and throw it in the garbage can. The capabilities that we have through our factory partner on this here in the United States, so that it's Sitka wader made in the U.S., but we have the ability to repair anything on that pair of waders. Anything. They're your waders, and we're going to keep you in them for a long time. That's one of the reasons we're kind of, talking about it this way, is that it potentially is the last pair of waders you ever need to buy. A lot of the other products that are manufactured in this factory, they've been going through a repair process when things happen like that for 20 years now. Same product that a guy bought 20 years ago, the wetsuit. He just keeps sending it back and getting it repaired when he needs to. It doesn't mean it's happening often. It could be every 4 or 5 years, but at the end of the day, someone's going to do something silly and try and go through the barbed wire fence, or something submerged underwater you don't see is going to, create a puncture, or pinhole leaks are going to happen and may need more than just a field repair. It's not a question of if, but when will I need to get this repaired, and we can do it is kind of our big thing. So the serviceability of the waders is key. We can replace boots, the ability to remove a boot and then put it back on and it not leak. It's pretty groundbreaking. We have a machine that we've created in order to do that, which I'm not going to say any more than just that because it's highly sensitive. But we have that capability. I mean, it's one of those things, you completely destroy your boots. We can put brand new boots on there and send you back out on your way. So that's pretty awesome. Never been done in the industry before. Outside of that, the particular laminate that we're using, the breathable laminate, is a Gore Pro Shell. It's a 4-layer Pro Shell. The benefits of that is kind of the same discussion with merinos. If your merino fabric and the other fabrics in your system that's pulling moisture away and bringing that to the surface of the garment so that you stay dry, but the wader can't pull that moisture out as well, it kind of defeats the purpose. And so a lot of people are like, well, how does that even happen? How can you keep moisture out, but it's still released through the fabric? And that's just the beauty and the design of what EPFE is, which is what Vortex is. But again, long walks in and moving decoys around and working up that sweat, being able to move, it Ramsey was laughing his butt off at me when we were in Australia because we didn't have a dog a couple of days to help us retrieve birds, and we were hunting some real shallow flats, and I was literally having to run birds down. But I can tell you what, guys, I can move pretty dang good in those waders. I may not be running a super fast 40 split, but I can book it. And so they're just super easy to move around and get up and down and do what you need to do. So again, coming back to that comfortability perspective of a product, keeping you out in the field longer. I've worn the waders in a lot of versatile situations where, you know, here in Montana, you know, the temps get down below zero and our rivers still stay open. And so being able to layer appropriately for those types of temperatures here, and then wear them in 80 and 90 degree weather down in Mexico, and everything in between has been eye-opening and very exciting for us as a brand to see how they handle that. Again, it just comes down to layering with the wader appropriately. You know, obviously it's going to work better if you use Sitka gear products to layer with it, but it's not necessarily a must, you know. The other cool things about it, and the industry's done this before, I'm kind of surprised that in the fly fishing industry, there's a couple different brands that have a full zip in the front, which has multiple benefits. You know, getting the waders on and off for a lot of guys is not as easy as they'd like for it to be. That full zip in the front makes it easier to put waders on and take them off, as well as if you're standing out in flooded timber or wherever you're at, you need to take a leak and relieve yourself. That can be difficult, but it's a great benefit to be able to have that front zip for easy access and relief. You know, so that's a big one. And then we've got added knee pads and support in the product as well. If you're kneeling down or kicking through ice, it doesn't hurt nearly as bad as some of the other products out there. But there's a lot of different things that went into making the wader that address a lot of the problems. So we think we have that solution with this particular product for a wide variety of hunting situations, whether you're hunting timber, rivers, lakes, in and out of the boat, doesn't matter. We've tested all of it through a variety of temperature ranges, and it's been a 4-year project that we're excited to put out there to the consumer.
It's funny that you say that because there's 2 points I want to make. One, I know this type of product doesn't come to market overnight, and then obviously you've got guys testing them and things like that. And I mean, you know, the ability to keep it under wraps online is amazing that you actually accomplished it. Well, I mean, literally the closest you'd see is someone taking like a screenshot of an Instagram post, cropping it into like 500% and being like, I think that dude's wearing like, you know, OptiFade waders in the baggers, you know what I mean? It was right. Like people grasping all over the place. So it's really impressive that you guys were able to keep that under wraps in today's day and age. And secondly, I think, you know, one of the things we talk about a lot and we definitely, you know, believe Sitka is an industry leader in this, but we also realize that there's other companies doing in other product vectors and things that do similar. But one of the things that we love is seeing companies innovate and push the envelope and challenge norms and kind of break barriers to see what the best product is. Because even, you know, like we were talking before, even if there's someone out there that's not a Sitka guy, he's going to benefit from this because Sitka Gear has laid the gauntlet down and said, hey, here we go. Like we're in the game now. We're pushing here. These are what we're doing to innovate. And now this is going to force other companies who want to try to compete to also innovate. So, you know, we love to see innovation across all of the products, decoys, calls, gear, all of that stuff, because that truly does, you know, is a rising tide that will raise all boats and we will all benefit. So kudos Absolutely. To you guys. And, you know, we love to see the innovation. So good job for that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah. And I think another thing, you know, there's a lot of features you didn't mention too. You know, you have loops for D-rings for your decoys and
so we did a collaboration on a lacrosse booth, and I mean, obviously it's expected. I'm going to say all these great things about the product, but they work at Sitka, man. That booth is the closest to perfect that I've ever had in a wader booth, and it's kind of one of those things you got to go try and see what I'm talking about. But there is no heel slip. You don't get bogged down in the mud. Super comfortable. I had to walk in them for 2 miles to get to a spot we wanted to hunt. Not that I even had the waders on, but that right there says a lot. If you forget that you're wearing a pair of waders, that's awesome.
Yeah. And it's changing from neoprene to the breathable waders is a huge step up in that as well. I remember long walks in neoprene was just sweating and being so miserable. But going back to that, you guys have a new belt system on that, and I think we can transfer maybe to some other innovative products. But I believe that I saw maybe a change to the Hudson with some stretchy material.
Yeah. So the Hudson jacket has done an update. So Gore-Tex, as I've explained, is 100% waterproof fabric technology. At Gore, we've been able to develop another textile and upgrade to that, which has a stretch component to it. So it's still 100% waterproof, and it's been mapped specific to go across the shoulders and in points where typically you would have a seam pull and feel it pull up against your body as you go to shoulder your shotgun, swing through a shot, or if you're out, trying to pick up decoys and throw them over your shoulder, whatever that may be. As you go through those motions, that stretch fabric is placed strategically in places that will move more efficiently and more fluidly with your body movement. And so it's just that one little small piece of attention to detail that we're looking at where we're like, hey, this would make life more comfortable and allow me to move more easily in what I do when I'm out in the field.
Yeah, I think that's pretty incredible. Now, I have we're getting close to an hour here, but I had one last question. You see a lot of people, there are the duck oven and Delta wading jacket lovers, and then there's some Hudson or layout lovers. So I was wondering kind of what's your go-to setup if you're, I don't know, 10, 15 degrees, what would you go after?
Yeah, and beyond temperatures, I think another variable that has to be spoken to is, the layout jacket was specifically designed for people that are hunting in field situations. That's why it's called the layout. If you know you're going to be hunting in dry field, the way that product is designed and the way the insulation and the protection has been mapped is to benefit somebody that's laying flat on the ground. The way that the Delta jacket has been designed is, it's a more versatile piece because you can layer a lot underneath it. There is no insulation in the Delta. It's just a Gore-Tex shell. And so what a lot of guys down south do, which makes a lot of sense because you could have wider ranges of temperature swings where maybe it's 70 degrees and then, a couple of days later it's 30 degrees. And so the ability to put the duck oven on underneath, which was designed, the duck oven is actually designed for underneath your waders. And then, should weather get implement and you need to put on a rain shell, you just throw the Delta over the top of your duck oven and your waders and you're good to go. That's where that design is. Now, if you're going to be in a situation or throughout the hunting season where you may do a little bit of field hunting today, you may be standing in flooded marshes with wood timber and you need something that will cover all situations. The Hudson jacket, in my mind, is really kind of that great all-around product that takes care of most waterfowl pursuits. And so, again, you kind of have to go through and ask yourself, okay, well, what type of hunting am I doing most? If I'm field hunting a lot, that's primarily my thing and what I do. And the layout jacket, layout bib is your go-to. And it can be used, obviously, if out of that situation too, but that's what it was specifically designed for. And then for the guy that's doing a little bit of both, I'd say go with the Hudson. People that are in climates where it doesn't get quite as cold and you need the flexibility of layering, I'd say go with the Delta and just make sure you have insulation pieces that can go on underneath it depending on the temperature.
Yeah, Dan and I are both big fans of the Hudson jacket.
It's awesome.
So we've sang its praises for quite a while, and actually hearing you describe the new features in it kind of has me conflicted now, and finding myself maybe thinking about a re-up. But anyway, as Dan mentioned, we've kept you for a good while here. We definitely appreciate the time. It will get you out on my final question. We're doing this interview. It is June 6th, and I guess I would ask you. We've talked a lot about family. What are you asking for Father's Day, man?
Nothing. Just time at home with the kids, man. Seriously, that's all I need.
Yeah, it's funny when we had Ramsey on here. He said, correct me if I'm wrong here, Dan, but I believe his quote was, kids spell love TIME or something like that. Dan,
yes, sir.
Exactly.
Just spending time with family. So can completely relate there. But I bet you're a hard one to shop for, man. I mean, you got all the good camo. You probably got all all the good stuff that goes with it. I feel bad for your wife. She probably has a hard time getting you Christmas presents.
Yeah, she does. She does. She gets pissed about it. But hey, it is what it is.
Yeah. I bet.
It should make it easier because I give her the free pass. I'm like, look, I was like, really, like, don't worry about it. It's fine. You don't need anything. So it's good time, Joe.
Yeah. Well, Ryan, we definitely appreciate your time. We encourage everybody to check you out over on Instagram. I Get Ducks. Check out what you got going on at Trophy Expeditions. Any other social media platforms or anything else you'd like people to check out?
No, man, that covers it. I mean, stay up to speed with us and what we're doing at Sitka Gear. All the new products. We've got a lot of new stuff coming out here over the next couple of months, so stay tuned. Some exciting things going on at Sitka Gear. If you're interested in any waterfowl hunts, I strongly recommend calling Ramsey Russell at getups.com. He's a wealth of information. The guy hunts all over the world, as some of your listeners probably already know. And yeah, for those of you who have any big game hunting interests outside the country, check out a Trophy Expeditions. It's a family-run business. My mom, dad, my wife, and I, and would love to help some people get out there and check some of those lifetime experiences off the list. That's what we're here to do.
Awesome. Good deal, man. Well, we appreciate the time. We've enjoyed the conversation, and enjoy your time off for Father's Day with the family.
Thanks. Appreciate that. Thanks for having me, guys. A lot of fun.
All right. Well, I enjoyed the conversation. I'm glad that we got to get the lowdown on the new Sitka waders, and hopefully everyone got some information about their next hunt. And, I think Ryan makes a point that's a good one, that, you don't know until you know. So if you think that a hunt of a lifetime might be out of reach, you can still kick the tires on it and see if it's something that you can make work. And who knows, it might not be quite as difficult as what you thought it might have been. So hopefully that's something you all take away from this. And don't give up on that hunt of a lifetime if it's something that you really want to pursue.
Our listeners group, I think we're around 3,700 people. We have a roll call post on there where you can type in roll call, go down to the state that you're in or you want to go in, and people have signed up there that would be willing to hunt with other members of our listeners group. So if you don't want to spend all that money, like a lot of people don't, get in there, talk to some people, set up a hunt. Some really great people in there, and I think that's a cool way to experience some different states or different type of hunting that you've never been able to do or never wanted to pull the trigger on. And that's one thing, the group facilitated our main trip last year, and we stayed at a listener's house and went out with, Lily and Marquis, and another listener came up with us, Vandecamp and my brother, and it was a great trip. So it's very within your reach to be able to go and try something new. And I think it's super cool. But you know what? One thing that I took away from that conversation with Ryan was, with all the social media followers he has and the places he gets to go, and that guy could be the biggest jerk in the world if he wanted to. But he's saying, he plugs back in at 9:00 after his family's asleep, and he's answering questions for high schoolers or college kids. And on top of that, the value that he puts on the time in the field versus killing of the birds, which he does a ton of, and a ton of different species, but it all goes back to that time in the field and the people that he's meeting and the entire experience overall. That was just eye-opening to me. And I've talked to Ryan before, and chat here and there, but to really get that deep into a talk and know where his values lie, that was very, very cool to hear on his end.
Yeah, there's so much about the decisions that I make as a consumer that goes into, I'm buying the people as much as I'm buying their products. And I think a lot of guys probably feel very similar. And to know that I mean, Ryan has been around, he's worked for other camouflage companies. He's worked, in the hunt consultant business for a long time. Those are, you don't have sustained success if you're not a people person, and understand that, at the other end of your product is a consumer that works a 9 to 5 and is allocating a portion of his family budget to his passions, in that, he's trusting your product with that investment. So to know that you can reach out to somebody who has 77,000 followers on Instagram and he's going to do his very best to get a response to you, is not only important, but I think it goes to show you why, Sitka Gear and why Ryan specifically have had success in pursuing their passions. So definitely something that, has influenced me and will continue to do so, in my purchasing decisions.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And, it was just a great convo, and excited for some new gear to come out. Mm-hmm. And it's just, where are we at here? We're in June and within 90 days of opening goose season. So 3 months away, getting excited, getting my head right a little bit. And I don't know, man, I think that's about, probably going to wrap it up tonight. You think?
Yeah, I know.
I'm not trying to do the one last thing again.
Just commit to it. Say, this is it. And then we'll go.
Well, let me think for a second.
Right.
Yeah, I think I'm good.
You sure? Well, I'll give you one last chance here in a minute. I just want to remind everybody that we would like to thank the sponsors of this week's episode: Lifetime Decoys, Gunner Kennels, Hunt Hickory Creek, Camp Chef, Black Rifle Coffee Company, Big Al Silhouette Decoys, 737 Duck and Goose Calls, Southern Oak Kennels, and Cornerstone Gun Dog Academy. Guys, we can't do what we do without the support of these companies, so please support them when you can. Also, we've added a discount page to our website, so go there and check it out. We will maintain all of our current discounts that we have available through the show for you on our website under the discount page. So right now you can go there and save yourself some money at Dunn Sporting Goods, Black Rifle Coffee Company, White Rock Decoys, and 737 Duck Calls. So definitely take advantage of those while you have the opportunity and while they're there for you. So, all right, Dan, one last try. What do you got?
I mean, I appreciate all those companies. I appreciate you as the host. We got Father's Day coming up. I appreciate all the dads. Do your thing out there.
You got it. Happy Father's Day, everybody. All right, that does it for episode 86 of the HP Outdoors Waterfowl Podcast. Hopefully you enjoyed our discussion with Ryan from Sitka Gear, and hopefully you have a chance to catch up on any past episodes that you might be behind on. Check us out, iTunes. If you're not in our listeners group on Facebook, get over there. Find out how you can win yourself a Sitka Hudson jacket. That's right, we're going to give one away. Come to our listeners group, find out how you can do it. It's just that easy. I think that's it for this week. So until next week with new content, for Dan, I'm Josh. Take care.